once in my life, that's why you all do it, you get such a job. And then suddenly you have that job, and for the first 2-3 years, of course, you practice like hell to just be able to do your job.
Yeah.
But after some time, you start to know how it works, and you know what you have to do. And then slowly it's difficult to have really a big reason to go for, because what you always wanted you have already.
Yeah.
And that was very important for me to really sit down and think, what do I want more? What do I want for projects? So I started to do solo competitions. Not because I only wanted to be a soloist and not wanted to be in the orchestra, but I needed something to... It's a pity if you're 22, 23, 24 and just sit down and not develop anymore until you're 65. So I wanted to do things. So I started to do solo competition, and I was very lucky to get it's called the Dutch Music Netherlands Music Prize. The government created a budget for talented people. But if you get this prize, you can sort of make your own study for 2 years. So you can take lessons with whoever you want. So I made a project to have lessons with a famous cello player in Holland, Alan Bijlsma, and with a bassoon player, Brian Pollard. And I went to Chicago to study with the trombone player there. I started to study Sackbut, the Baroque trombone in France. I went so that was a moment I could get this budget, but then they said you have to make plans for it. Right. You don't get just money and do it.
New car.
So that was a moment, and it was perfect timing for me, because I 4 or 5 years in the orchestra, and I said, okay, now I really have to, all these plans again. You have always in the back of your head things you maybe want to do at some point. So okay, now I have to write them down, make a plan, and do it. And that was great. So that is the danger of having an orchestra job in a young age, that you start to have a nice salary, and you have, after a few years you know how to deal with the job, how to be, and then to slowly fall asleep.
Yeah, just kind of plateau.
Yeah, and especially as a trombone player and a tuba player, this is very dangerous, I think, because if you're a hobo player in the orchestra, you have every week difficult things to do. Even a horn player, the solo horn, you have terrible solos every week. So there's enough to put yourself under pressure for. But as a trombone player, you have once a year maybe a bolero or Mahler 3, which is great. And all the other weeks you have to play well and you have to play good things, but it's not the extra tension of doing a big solo. So sometimes you can survive as a trombone player for 3-4 years without a big solo. And if you never do anything else, then suddenly you have to do a bolero, and it doesn't work anymore. So we have to, when we do another rehearsal of the 3 hours, we maybe play 10-15 minutes. But then suddenly it has to be good. So I really believe, I feel for myself that besides the orchestra, you have to do many things, to play a lot, to be always ready to do your 1-bar solo in the orchestra. Because if you don't do enough next to it, 1 note or 1 bar can suddenly be really a nerve breaker in the orchestra. It can still be. It is also now, but if you do a lot of solo playing, you keep the experience of what to do, how to deal with the nerves.
So did you kind of start your solo career when you won this prize from the government? You were able to take all these different lessons with...
Yeah, I did already a lot of like solo competitions when I was young in Holland. And then you play a recital here and I think there. And then the biggest start of the solo career is a big word, but the solo playing I do is when I won these 2 international trombone competitions. There was one in Guebwiller and one in Toulon. And there was 2 years after each other. And they were quite big trombone competitions here in Europe. And I won both, and after that I got invited to international trombone festivals and here and there to do master classes and things. And so from that on, started to work. And when I did, when I won this prize, this Netherlands Music Prize, they presented the prize during a concert where I played with the Concertgebouw Orchestra, Berio trombone concerto. It's called Solo. It's not the sequenza. Everybody knows the sequenza of Berio, but he wrote also in one of his last pieces. He wrote a big trombone concerto.
Okay.
And I played that with the orchestra, and then, of course, there is with the Concertgebouw in the Concertgebouw. So there was a lot of press, and so that's started to. And then I got offered to make some CDs, solo CDs, and so that was the beginning.
Yeah.
From one comes the next.
Right. So it's kind of slowly, kind of like a snowball effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I like to do it, and so every opportunity I get is. The great thing is if you have an orchestra job like this, there's nothing you have to do. Because you have your life, your salary, you have a great job. It's fantastic to play there in the orchestra. So the only thing you do next to the orchestra is things you like. Right. So I like to play as a soloist, and whatever I got offered, I do when I can do it. Of course, the orchestra is most important, so I have to be there sometimes.
Sometimes.
But if I can do it, I like to do it, and so from one comes the next.
So how many recitals or solo concerts do you do a year?
Oh, good question. I would say every 1 or 2 weeks there's something. More or less. Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so it's not that everything is like a solo concerto with Berlin Philharmonic. I mean, there's different. There is maybe a masterclass where I play also 2 pieces for the students, or a little recital, or sometimes a big concert with orchestra. Next month I do with Gelders Orchestra, is a big provincial orchestra in Holland. And yeah, so it varies. It's not all big things, but there's always every 1 or 2 weeks something to play, which is nice because it keeps you practicing.
Right. Yeah. And having to do so many of these recitals or playing for people, can you tell me about a time where maybe a concert recital where just everything went wrong?
So far I had no. You're always afraid for this kind of terrible disasters, but so far it never really happened. There's the one moment I had a concert that I remember, but I was quite young, so that when I was, I think, 17 or 18, I did this national competition for young talented people, and I prepared a far too difficult program if I look to it now, but then I somehow thought I could play it, and then during the concert I got the classic way of everything, whole body tensed too much and blocked, and nothing came out, and dry mouth and everything we all know.
Yeah.
And that was the most terrible moment that I can remember from that. And that made me think, okay, if I want to solve this, I have to really. They always tell me that I have to work my breathing, and I have to. But that moment that made the sort of click, and I thought, okay, from now on, every day, I have to breathing exercises, relaxation exercise, and really being focused on that when you have to do a concert. So after that, it never really happened anymore that it completely collapsed. But of course, one concert is better than the other, and I cannot say, some concerts it goes, and then still and it's funny also because sometimes you really feel bad, and then funny enough, the concert goes well. Some concerts you warm up and think, okay, today is great, and then you miss some notes, and so. I think as a brass player you have to accept that you miss notes. Yeah. And you make kicks, and of course you do everything you can to limit the amount. But if that would be the goal to hit all the notes, you forget to make music. So I think you have to do everything you can to prepare well and to play at least at a certain level. And then when there's a concert, I try to focus on the music.